What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. Big news, the Spawncast jerseys are now available in the shop. They went live over the weekend, and Evan's been spending a while working on these so that each Spawncast member has their own individual jersey with their name and number on the back. Even managed to work in Sean's 50-50 there, but they're available. Wouldn't have them up and ready to go for when things like Mario Strikers come out because we have some plans around different gameplay videos with those. Today, though, we have a bunch of things to go over, which does include Konami once again with a couple of games seemingly leaking out a bit early here, and, well, Konami may have accidentally confirmed it. We're going to go over that one here today. Also, we are going to be talking about The Legend of Zelda for 2022. We have Breath of the Wild being pushed into next year, but what about that potential collection? Well, one of the developers was asked about it, and unfortunately the answer may not be what people were hoping to hear. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure you hit that like button, helps that a ton. And if you're new here to the Spawnwave channel, make sure you subscribe down below and ring that notification bell so you can keep up to date with all of the uploads here on the channel. And we're going to start today with SEGA. Now, there have been a lot of questions when it comes to SEGA and these super games, as we've heard that they're going to pull from some of their older intellectual properties like Jet Set Radio and Crazy Taxi. That'll be something to see. But we also see them doing some remasters and re-releases like the Sonic Origins collection. Well, looks like they could have more planned here pretty soon. We can see this post up. This over on VGC says it puts this forecast down to a significant increase in titles as well as continued revenue from the large number of new titles released during fiscal year 2022. That looking towards fiscal year 2023, where they're apparently anticipating double the number of games sold. This includes a number of new games it describes as remake, remaster, spin-off, or change of theme, of which it says it is planning multiple titles. So now we can all kind of speculate around what games we would like to see SEGA go back, remaster, and bring up to current platforms. Seems like they have a lot to choose from, and I figured SEGA would have done this many, many times already, but they seem to always talk about remasters and remakes and just don't really deliver on them. Also, as we are heading into June, there's a lot of anticipation around several conferences and showcases that we should be seeing from Nintendo, Microsoft, and Sony. Sony, of course, has God of War Ragnarok still scheduled for this year, and we're all kind of waiting for that date to get dropped. Well, take a look at this. This from Push Square saying rumors Sony showcase could be set for first week of June. And I love the update. Or might not be, who knows? And a lot of this has to do with Jeff Grubb over on his channel had been talking about this. People transcribed that he mentioned looking towards the first week of June for a showcase that he had heard about, and then following up here after that going on, saying, I've heard nothing will happen until September. The more pessimistic rumors never get put in era threads. Yeah, so at this point, to me, with Sony, anytime now. That's the biggest thing with them. It's just, it can pop up. They don't follow the E3 mentality as it is before E3 not being here this year. So they could even pick and choose where they want to drop different things. They could have a smaller state of play and then also participate in Summer Games Fest. We should hear something from them soon, one way or the other, because their PlayStation Plus premium service is launching in, 2 weeks now? So we're going to find out this list of older retro titles along with some of the newer PS4 and PS5 stuff will be there. Even if they don't give it to us, it's going to be launching, I believe, in parts of Asia on the 23rd. So we'll find out one way or the other. Oh, and while, of course, we saw Starfield, Redfall, that get pushed into next year, it's left people wondering, what exactly is happening this year for Xbox and Game Pass? And while we're not necessarily seeing any games announced just yet, that could be in June, maybe with their showcase, we can see this here from Tom Warren, Microsoft working on an Xbox Dynamic Backgrounds editor. It looks like it will let Xbox owners create their own dynamic backgrounds. Going on to say, I'm hearing this tool is likely only for game developers rather than Xbox consumers. Either way, it seems we'll see more Xbox Dynamic Backgrounds soon. I mean, that's pretty cool to have that. I know you're probably thinking, well, I'd rather have some games for the system, but I don't necessarily believe that development for the dashboard along with dynamic themes and an editor for developers to use would impact what Bethesda is technically doing, or the Coalition or Playground or anything there. It's just a nice thing to have for developers who want to put together a quick dynamic theme to help advertise their future releases. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with this massive leak that hit the internet over the weekend, and it has to do with Konami, which is really funny because Konami is actually posting like record-breaking profits, and it doesn't really have a lot to do with games. So it is nice occasionally when we see them just kind of pop up, even if it's in the rumor mill, because it's like, all right, Konami might actually do something here, even though they're doing perfectly fine with their pachinko and gaming business there. But take a look at this. This was posted up by Aesthetic Gamer or Dust Golem, showing that their account had been locked, and this had to do with a now deleted tweet showing off several screenshots from an unannounced Silent Hill game. And the funny thing about this is they shared the images, and at that point it's anyone's guess. Okay, they'll just argue back and forth, we'll speculate on it, is this real, is this not? But then they were hit with copyright strike or DMCA takedowns, and in its place, it was like it was struck by Konami. So the fact that Konami struck them, everyone's like, well, this was probably real then. I can't show the images here necessarily because Konami would probably strike this video down, but I did notice, just a heads up, VGC seems to just have them hosted on their website, so I'm sure there's a place you can check them out. Now, the images mostly showed kind of a creepy environment, very Silent Hill looking, along with a person's face. But I mean, it looks like this would be for Bloober Team, and that's kind of where it started to lose some people because, well, Bloober Team did like the medium, and that didn't exactly knock it out of the park for a lot of people. And Nate did chime in here over on his Nate the Hate account on Twitter. Bloober Team working on Silent Hill 2 remake, reworked puzzles, new endings, timed PlayStation console exclusive, multiple Silent Hill projects in development, including new mainline entry and side stories. He says not confirmed, just sharing what I've heard. Nate's been talking about Silent Hill for a while. It became very real, like I said, over the weekend, with these images getting out there and then Konami showing up and essentially confirming that, yeah, those aren't supposed to be out there. And I am wondering at this point if Dust Golem just had these images, apparently from a 2020 build or media kit or something, if maybe we're going to hear more about this from other sources in the future. I mean, generally when you start seeing this happening, it's a snowball effect and people start looking into their own sources and find out more and more stuff. And then we get a story or report that just gets dropped one day. And when we were doing the Spawncast, Nate did mention that this apparently was one of the games that Konami was planning to announce last E3 before they just kind of canceled at the last minute. I will admit though, hearing that Bloober Team would be handling the Silent Hill 2 remake after what I played with the medium, little concerned with that one. I mean, I guess in that case, it's not necessarily you have to make up brand new lore and source material. You have something to go off of there. They're gonna rework puzzles and all this. I don't know. Let me know what you think about Bloober Team handling the Silent Hill 2 remake, but also the idea of potentially 2 other Silent Hill games. Like, did Konami just remember that they have Silent Hill all of a sudden and a new mainline game? Maybe some, as Nate's saying here, some spin-offs, some side stories. Certainly good news here for Silent Hill fans. Let's hoping it all comes out and looks good. But hey, maybe that's something we'll see at a showcase like with Microsoft, a PlayStation State of Play, or maybe even Summer Games Fest. Definitely want to keep our eyes out for it. Next up, let's talk about 2022 for Nintendo and The Legend of Zelda. After Breath of the Wild 2 got pushed into 2023, it's very disappointing for people, but it does appear that game is super ambitious and it's just going to take a bit longer. However, we have heard rumors and talks around there being a collection of Twilight Princess and Wind Waker maybe filling in for it, something that potentially could have been done actually, Nintendo just kind of sitting on it as a just-in-case release. Well, the Tantalus CEO, who Tantalus had worked on Skyward Sword HD actually, as well as things like Twilight Princess HD for the Wii U, they were asked if Nintendo had talked to them about this. We can see this transcribed by Nintendo Everything. This is from the Fragments of Silicon podcast, and the CEO at Tantalus saying, no, and look, we'd obviously love to do that, but that hasn't been a priority for Nintendo, or at least not in conversations that they've had with us. Them asking the CEO if Nintendo had reached out to them and asked about moving Twilight Princess HD to the Switch. They go on to say the way it works with our friends over there is we'll jump at any opportunity we can to work on one of their titles. There's a constant dialogue between our two companies. Often there's a little bit of time that passes between titles, and there might be other ideas that are kicked around, but in the case of Skyward Sword, some time passed, and then the email comes, would you be interested in considering bringing Skyward Sword onto the Switch To which the answer is, of course, yes, we would. And then we enter into conversations with Nintendo around what that might look like, and eventually we get underway. So it was similar in a lot of senses in terms of how Twilight Princess on Wii U came to fruition. So obviously this quote had a lot of people saying, well, I guess that means that double pack isn't coming out this year. And I mean, it's always possible. It's been a rumor for a while now that this double pack was going to be a thing on the Switch. But does Nintendo really need Tantalus at this point, since they've done a lot of the work moving it from the Wii into HD on the Wii U? If Nintendo did this double pack with Twilight Princess and Wind Waker, how much work do you think they're really going to be putting into that? I mean, like I said, a lot of the work's already been done for the Wii U. When it comes to moving something from an SD system like we have on the Wii up to the Wii U and HD and all of this, moving it from there to the Switch would certainly be less work than what Tantalus had to do back in 2016. And I do still think we're gonna see that double pack this year, as Nintendo was working to have some sort of Zelda game each and every year, and this has been talked about for so long. If Nintendo was going to release it, seems like the perfect time to do so. And if they don't, then it probably was never a thing, since Breath of the Wild 2 looks like it's set up to be their big 2023 release for Legend of Zelda. And then after that, going to 2024, I mean, we're going to start moving to talks around a new Switch, whether it's a revision or some kind of next-gen device, since will be, 7 years with the Switch. So keep an eye out for this. I'm thinking if they're going to announce it, could be at their Nintendo Direct next month, and then we'll kind of roll along into the holiday season with hopefully a double pack for Wind Waker and Twilight Princess, because let's be real, a lot of us are probably just going to buy it again. Next up, let's talk about a new game heading to the Nintendo 64 expansion pack on Nintendo Switch Online, as we did have our second to last game so far announced. We can see this posted up by Nintendo, saying inhale enemies and combine their abilities in Kirby's Adventure Beyond Dreamland. Dozens of puffed up special powers await you in Kirby 64, the Crystal Shards, floating on Nintendo Switch for Nintendo Switch Online plus expansion pack members on May 20th. The thing I really like about these releases, by the way, is they have all new trailers they put together. It is a lot of fun. It certainly hits on the nostalgia for these releases. And Kirby 64, the Crystal Shards, probably is a game people go back to now after the Forgotten Land came out. And I mean, it's a very good game, and it seems like it's selling very, very fast. So I have a feeling there are a lot of people who haven't played a Kirby game that picked it up and might go back and check out Crystal Shards, which is a very unique Kirby title. Back when it came out, Nintendo was making the full shift into 3D with all of their games, but Kirby stayed as a 2.5D game, and they had some interesting things when it came to combining powers and a different perspective for the series. It looks like the multiplayer part is going to be online. They mostly had mini games there, but certainly a different take on the Kirby franchise somewhat. Like I said, still in that 2D plane, but it's like that 2.5D, and the combining powers was pretty cool. So certainly worth checking out later on this week when it releases. And then that does leave us with the question, well, we now know Pokemon Snap is next, and that would be releasing probably around the time of Nintendo's June Direct, if it's gonna fall in line with E3, when that typically would happen. And I assume they're going to announce Pokemon Snap's release date there, and then plans for what's next for the service. Will it just be a whole nother slate of games where they have to anchor it all down with Quest 64? Or do they have some other system plan? Certainly something to keep an eye on again as we head into June. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about that red box Nintendo Switch, and a price drop that happened last week led to a ton of speculation online, and the idea of maybe this version of the Switch getting phased out and having the OLED completely take its place. We can see this was posted up by IGN, showing off a $40 price drop on the system across multiple retailers. Includes Amazon, Walmart, GameStop, Best Buy, down to $260. However, like a day or two later, it went right back up to the normal $300 price. If you were trying to phase something out like that, yeah, you might drop the price, just unload all the stock that you have in your stores, and then move on to the current system, which would be the OLED and that Switch Lite. This, to me, though, just looked like a promotion, and this would happen from time to time back in the day when I did a lot of ordering for stores and talk with wholesalers. Occasionally, Nintendo would run promotions. It was very infrequent, to the point where it would catch us off guard completely, and to be honest, sometimes we just kind of skip it, because Nintendo didn't exactly offer price protection or any of that stuff. So it was more like, hey, everyone else is going to have it on sale. You should too. And that's kind of it. So it's like, well, I could lower the price, but in a few days, it's going to go back to normal. So maybe I won't. Now, that was kind of the way it was for smaller stores. For big chains like this, the video game section mostly exists to get you in the store, and then maybe you'll buy other more profitable things. Now, I do kind of think we're getting to the point where that red box Switch will slowly get phased out, if it already hasn't been, by Nintendo all the way at the top and then going down to the wholesalers and eventually retailers. Typically, retailers find out that information way later. It is very delayed. So it's possible that by this time next year, the red box Switch is impossible to find and it's just the OLED and the light on store shelves. But this is probably just a temporary promotion that Nintendo had set up with retailers randomly in the middle of a week. And before we go to the comment of the day, we're gonna take a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday, where I asked, when do you think PlayStation's next event is? Well, I got 3% for May. I mean, yeah, I guess technically there's only 2 weeks left in May, so that makes sense. A lot of people betting on June, 57%. I'm kind of leaning towards that, but again, Sony just kind of goes when they want, and it could be into July. However, if we go all the way into July and we still don't know God of War's release date, I don't know if it's still gonna be something coming out in 2022, so that's one of the big reasons I'm still banking on June for, at the bare minimum, a God of War a state of play. Remember, they don't have to have a full showcase or general state of play. They mostly need one just to get us a date for God of War, and then anything else they want to show off is fine. So here's hoping we get that date sooner rather than later so we know it is coming out in 2022, or at least somewhat confirmed. We saw what happened with Starfield after they gave us that release date. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This is from Ryo saying, with these delays, I'll be incredibly disappointed if Starfield is the usual Bethesda glitchy mess. Well, they delayed it, according to them, for polish, and to me, they're taking Skyrim into space where there's no gravity, so it's like, I kind of expect it to be pretty janky when it releases, even though they've had to delay it outside of 2022 into 2023, but if they do release it, and for the most part, there's not any major bugs that we have come to expect from these big open-world Bethesda games, hey, that would be worth it then. But on the other hand, if it's really buggy and glitchy, that's not going to be a good look. So certainly the pressure is on right now with this new creation engine that they have to deliver after this major delay. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. Was Legend of Zelda for 2022. Do you think we are getting that Wind Waker Twilight Princess double pack this year? And then what about Konami and Silent Hill? All of a sudden, remember they have this intellectual property outside of their pachinko machines. Do you think we're gonna see that big Silent Hill blowout here soon? Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.